You are. Here's the thing about you. You're the more glistening, gorgeous version of me.
I don't know about
Tell
that,
me I'm
bro.
wrong.
I see your Instagram, all your rippling muscles, all your workouts, please.
I know, but you're glowing right now. How are you glowing?
Well, I just have more melanin in my skin, bro. You're just a white Australian. And also I just got off the river. I was on this 5-day river rafting trip in Idaho that I just got back from yesterday. Lots of sun, got tan, you know.
That's good. That is a really good Aussie / New Zealander accent. When you said tan, that's how my mother-in-law says tan. I've got a tan here. Isn't it fantastic?
I love the nuances between Australian and New Zealand. Like they're to the untrained ear, you know, it's very difficult to hear them. But if you listen to enough of like Flight of the Conchords, you really start picking up on all those differences, which is really fun.
Murray from Flight of the Conchords, the manager, he is the ultimate New Zealand accent, of which he's very much here all the time, isn't he? And I mean, he is who I always do when I do New Zealander. It's Murray from Flight of the Conchords. Yeah. Zach, let me introduce you, and then we'll get stuck into this baby because I'm keen to get into it.
Yeah,
Zachary, is it Zachary Levi or Levi? It's not a great start. Levi. That's like what I've been telling everybody. It's Levi. Zachary Levi is an incredibly versatile actor. You may know him from the hit show Chuck. He was on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Tangled, American Underdog, and, of course, Shazam. Now, Zach, who is clearly annoyingly talented and glowing, has written a book. It's called Radical Love, and it turns out he's really annoyingly good at writing, too. Radical Love is a memoir about Zach's battle with mental health, but it's also a call to action to face ourselves head-on with radical honesty, radical forgiveness, and radical love. Zach, g'day.
G'day! How you doing, Lucky?
G'day. Mate, I'm so blown away by your book. I love it so much. Because I related to it so much, but it was so funny when your team sent over your bio, it said about Zach Levi, and I read through all of your career achievements, and I thought, yeah, but isn't it ironic? Because when you read the book, it's all about how all those career achievements of yours, of which there have been many, didn't fulfill you. They didn't matter, really.
Yeah, it's really, it's actually one of the things one of the more common kind of comments that I get from people, which is, I had no idea, but I think that's pretty common of most people that are dealing with depression. I mean, or anxiety. Most, because we're all living our own lives. You can't expect everyone to know what you're going through anyway, particularly if you're not talking about it. I wasn't talking about it that much. I didn't even know I was struggling with it. But most of the people who know me know upbeat, extrovert, gregarious, cutting it up Zach, because that's who, in my healthier moments or in my better moments or whatever, that's who I esteem to be. And also a lot of people, they know me either through my work, like actually watching it, or, the behind the scenes of that, like, when I'm doing press. And as I talk about in the book, I'm always in a pretty good place if I'm working. If I'm on a set, I'm happy because I have purpose. I have routine. I am getting my little hits of dopamine. I'm accomplishing, even offset. If I'm promoting something, I'm getting the same thing. So all of these people normally get the healthier, happier version of who I am or who I was. And, a bio kind of is a really interesting distillation of that. It's like, yeah, look at all, here's the hit list. Here's the highlights. And yet, as I talk about in the book, those things ultimately, while they buoyed me in the moment, and I was so stoked for them and grateful for them in the moment, that all peters off eventually. And you're left feeling like, all right, well, I guess I failed. I guess, unless, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are some more well-adjusted actors than I was, or, I think I'm getting there, but, that recognize that their worth wasn't directly tied to their work. In fact, I think I know a couple of them, these unicorns, whoever the fuck they are. But it wasn't me. For me, the only way that I could even fathom looking at a successful career was never stopping working and only going upward. And you do this movie, it then puts you into a category where now you get to these movies, and now you're in this category, and now you're doing these movies, and now you're working forever, and you get to work with Spielberg and Zemeckis and Scorsese and all the great directors and all the other great actors. That's the only version of actual success. At least it was in my mind, because everything short of that was still leaving me feeling like, well, I guess I'm not good enough. I guess I'm not a part of the cool kid club, which, to be perfectly honest, I still very much feel that way. I'm not, it doesn't bankrupt my soul as much as it used to, but even with all the things that I've gotten to do, I still feel like I'm on the outside looking in. I don't feel like I've been invited to whatever that cool kid table is. And maybe I never will. And maybe that's fine. I mean, my career has still been so insanely blessed. So it's a matter of trying to just find the gratitude and the happiness in that, however it ends up, panning out.
And it may be that you get invited to the cool kids club and you don't know it. Like you're in it and you don't know it yet,
Yeah. Or maybe you get invited to the cool kids club and you fucking hate it. And you're like, oh, this is not what I thought it would be or hoped it would be. Or it is what you thought and hoped it would be, and you're still not happy.
Yes.
Even that wasn't enough. And truthfully, if you're always chasing after the next thing to finally be enough, then chances are you're never going to get there. It's just this endless cycle.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Were you surprised? I mean, when you're at your lowest point, mental health wise, were you surprised at how well you could switch on the Zach Levi persona and smile? And I noticed a few times throughout the book where you go out in public going through anxiety and depression, and yet you switched it on and you could be really good with people. Were you surprised at how well you could do that when you were at your lowest?
In some ways, I think, yeah. Because it's weird. I mean, I like to think of myself as, and try to carry myself as, my most authentic self. I don't like faking it. I don't like putting on facades. In fact, I'll run from that as quickly as possible, whether it's in myself or in other people, if I feel like I'm getting a false version of who they are. And in Hollywood, you get a hell of a lot of that, as you know. So on one hand, I think I was surprised by it because of that. But then again, all of those times I was able to turn it on or get there or whatever were helped by there was a purpose in it. Even if that purpose was a moment of just a person recognizing and wanting to say, oh my gosh, I really loved your work in X or Y. That at least was a moment of purpose to go and make that person smile, to go bring some happiness to them in that moment, which is honestly one of the coolest things about this job. As somebody who, since I was a little kid and learned at 4 that around 4 probably where it was when it first dawned on me, I could intentionally make someone laugh. And I knew a laughing person was a happy person and they felt good. And I became addicted, like immediately. I wanted to feel that. I wanted them to feel that. And I wanted to feel them feeling that all the time. And then, of course, the very natural transition is to take that into do theater and start being an actor and all that. But it's still one of my favorite things. I love the fact that we, given these ridiculous jobs that we get to do and the fan bases that support these jobs and the amount of passion that they have for these things, for them to get the chance to just meet us, to just be like, oh my God, you have no idea. I love this so much. And it's easy to look at somebody like that and be like, you really like it that much? Like, I don't know why would you like this that much? Because we lived it or whatever. And also we see behind the curtain how all the sausage was made. But it's amazing. We have this little we have these little magic powers to go and take a little photo with somebody, to go sign something for them. And they'll float on that for a week, a month, a year, who knows how long. And it's a simple little gesture of ours that we get to do, So I think that in, many moments, most of the moments where I was able to kind of get there to being more happy-go-lucky Zach, I at least had some fuel for that fire. There were very few times, and probably those few times when I didn't have the fuel were the times when I really couldn't get there. I mean, there were times when, even when I had, somebody who was being very kind to me, it still felt just inauthentic. It felt like, why would you like me? Because I don't like me. And then it makes you feel even worse because you're like, why can't I get myself to think the way this person thinks about me? I don't know. It's very fucked up the way it all works in our heads, but.
It's very similar to the moment that you describe in the book where you're in the Philippines and you're working for a charity that helps kids with their cleft palates. And you are looking upon these a single mom who lives in a shack with kids, with all these kids. And you're like, okay, how am I not happy? It's actually pathetic that I'm not happy, given all that I have. What's wrong with me? And it's a self-loathing cycle that you're like, I am so ashamed that I am not happy because I've got so much and you have so, and then you like hate yourself even more. You described that a lot in the book. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all can relate to that on some level. I think that we don't allow ourselves to feel, or healthily feel, I don't even know how you healthily feel depression, but we don't allow ourselves to go through these emotions oftentimes in a way to really process them because, or at least myself, I think I can speak for other people in this regard. But yeah, it's like you're feeling low, you're feeling bad, you're feeling depressed, and then you try to have some kind of, comparative example to try and, if anything, hopefully pull you out of it and be like, okay, let's just count my blessings. I'm going to sit here in some gratitude and I'm going to think about all the things I have, that other people don't. But oftentimes it just makes you feel worse about it because you're like, now you're shooting on yourself. I should be so happy. Even, right before I had my breakdown in 2017 when I was in the Philippines, and I thought my career was shit. I was like, I've not accomplished all of these things. I've missed out on all these other jobs. I haven't had the faith in myself that I needed. I'm no good. I've missed the boat on so many of these other things. But millions of people, I was living their dreams. I was literally living the dreams of so many other people that would have given their left arm to trade places. And you think about that, and then you go, wow, you're a real schmuck. You're a real schmuck that you can't see, like not just see, but like feel the blessings that you have right now. And it's a very weird, self-fulfilling prophecy of spiral down to garbage. And the Philippines was a very stark example of that because this woman had nothing. They had nothing. They were living out in the middle of nowhere in these farm fields in this teeny little, not even a village. I mean, it was all of these workers I guess they would probably call it a village, but all these workers that would work these agricultural fields. And they had these total, like just thrown together, stick and like tarp, if they were lucky, roofs and complete dirt floors. It was just dirt. There was nothing. It was dirt. And yet here she was sweeping it just to take pride in it, to be like, well, I might just have a dirt floor, but I'm going to make sure I don't have any sticks or rocks laying around in my house. And I just started looking at all this, man, it just broke my heart. It broke my heart for them, first and foremost, because I don't know, ever since I was a kid, man, I've just had a lot of empathy for people, and to look at people in poverty, like really abject poverty, is rough, dude. It's, it's anywhere you go in the world. It's It's one of the reasons why I've hesitated going to India, because I know from all my friends who have ever traveled there, it's like, yo, just prepare yourself. Like that caste system and like how all of those people end up falling to the bottom and the untouchables and all of the panhandling and kids with like missing limbs. And I mean, it's overwhelmingly sad to me. So already that's hitting me. And then that just gets amplified by, and I'm a schmuck. I have a wonderful home and I have a car. These people are barely making it around. They have to, hitch rides on the back of pickup trucks or take a donkey, or, I mean, it's ridiculous. But I think it just goes to show you that it's not a matter of what you have. It's how you see it. I couldn't look at what I had correctly. And I might have had even less. I might have had, I might have been, hand to mouth on my paychecks or whatever it was and just try and scrape by. But if my mental health was stronger and healthier and loved myself, then I would have had a clearer way of being able to see all of that and be like, yeah, I don't have everything that I wish I would have had, but damn it, I'm a good guy and I'm proud of myself and I'm working hard and I'm doing the best that I can. So it's really so much about your perspective on it.
Well, do you have any advice for people who are in those self-loathing spirals? It's hard when you don't love yourself, but there's always probably a way to self-criticize without self-loathing. Are there any tips for people who are like that? Like, how did you find your self-talk to become when you finally did love yourself?
Well, I mean, I'm still working on it. Like I'm 5 years ago, or not even 5, about 4.5 or 4 3/4, I don't know, almost 5 years ago, was when I had this breakdown and I went to this life-saving therapy. But that means I'm a toddler in this process. I've only been understanding that I didn't love myself, let alone trying to practice it for, just under 5 years. And my self-talk and how horrible all that was. And so, I mean, first and foremost, I think the thing that we have to remember is that we're all products of our environment. And you've got to give yourself a break. You got to give yourself a fucking break. And in doing so, it'll help you to start giving other people a break. We're all so quick to want to judge, and it starts with ourselves and then it goes out from there. And a lot of that, our self-talk is really all rooted in, by and large, it's how our parents talk to us. If our parents talk to us in a certain way, we echo, we mimic, we mirror the way they talk to us. Some people had, not so traumatizing childhoods where their parents might have, no parents are perfect, obviously, but, a lot of parents did a good job at modeling self-love or rather even just giving love that helped that child to love themselves. They had firm boundaries, but still had a soft landing if the child messed up or whatever. There wasn't just this whiplash anger that might come out. And therefore, they get into their adulthood and they have a much better, easier time working through those cobwebs because they're already self-talking on a much healthier level. For those of us who don't, or even those who do, by the way, I think it's really important to remember that, or at least I believe, and I think a lot of other people do too, and to quote a book called The Untitled Soul, we are not the voice of our mind, we are the one who hears it. And that's been said many times in many ways by many, many very wise and intelligent people. But it's really important to remember that our self-talk is not even our own voice. Like, and by the way, not even always necessarily our parents' voice that's ringing in our head, but there are all manner of shit flies to our heads. So many crazy thoughts. I mean, I was talking about this recently, but you ever drive along a road? This happens to me all the time. I'm like driving along a windy road. By the way, not a suicidal thought, just like random thoughts. You're driving along a windy road and you're looking like over the cliff and you're like, damn, that's a really far way down. And you're thinking, what if I just pulled the wheel right now?
Yes.
Not that you want to, not that you're going to do it, but those scenarios run through your head, or like going to a show, a play or a comedy show or some live deal. and you're sitting in the audience and you have the thought, what if I just got up right now and I ran all the way down the aisle and onto the stage and went, and then like ran out the back of the theater? What would happen?
Mm-hmm.
I have those thoughts all the time. I don't know why I have those thoughts, other than because it's not me like seriously actively wanting to do that or whatever. It's just our minds are these incredible flesh supercomputers that are constantly having thoughts that are not controlled by us, that are not manifested by us, but rather all the weird ones and zeros all clashing together and doing weird things. So it's super important, whether your mental health is strong or not. It's always important to remember, I'm not always the one in control of everything that's going on up here. But particularly, it's important to remember that if your self-talk and your mental health are bad. Because it really, that's the first big lie. The main lie that it consistently tells you, and the biggest lie that it tells you, the darkness will lie to you and tell you, you are alone. You are uniquely broken. There is no one and nothing that will pull you out of this. So, might as well just give up now. That's not you. That's not even your parents. That is the darkness. And I really do believe that there is a darkness. I don't know that I would name it even. A lot of friends within the Judeo-Christian kind of lineage would call it the enemy or Satan or whatever that is. And perhaps it is. Perhaps that's what it is. I wonder, having gone through my mental health journey, I wonder how much Satan even needs to work, given how horrible we treat ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know that the enemy's just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm chill right now because they're already doing my job. And we do. Our minds are so capable of lying to ourselves and shitting on ourselves. And so we have to take those thoughts captive. And that's what I would say, the first bits of advice of anybody who's trying to really get through their self-talk, like make that a better thing. As soon as you start to speak ill of yourself, as soon as you start to, shoulda, coulda yourself, or shame yourself, or blame yourself, or whatever it is, immediately stop. Immediately recognize that is not true. It's just not true. No, even your parents, like even my parents who were very psychologically abusive, they didn't mean to be. If they were here right now and were hopefully more well adjusted, but even if they weren't, they wouldn't want me to want to die. Mm-hmm. That's just all of that stuff. That's all the murk and the mire and all of the nonsense. So, take your thoughts captive. And we're capable of doing it. It's hard when you're depressed, obviously, because all of it feels super real, but that's just a hormone imbalance. I mean, I probably had a dopamine deficiency most of my life and had no idea that I did. And only through Andrew Huberman and people like that, have I learned so much about this stuff, being like, oh my God, that's why I couldn't get out of bed. That's why when I was depressed, I was incapable of getting my ass out of bed and doing anything. Sadness equates, you had no dopamine in your body, Zach. It was all gone. Yeah. It was all gone. And therefore I had nothing to motivate me, nothing to encourage me to get up and move and go. So that, just understanding the concepts. Really the biggest thing I would encourage anybody to do, first step is go talk to somebody. Go find a therapist immediately. We all need one. Everybody does. Particularly the people who don't think they do. Everybody needs a little, at least a little bit, and a lot of us need a lot of it, and that's okay,
Yeah, I think I'm similar to you in that way, in that I'm a very smiley, positive person, and everyone who meets me is like, that isn't he a breath of fresh air? And it's like, look, you think I'm not capable of the darkness? You think that my brain? I think the thing is about like self-talk is that your brain is brilliant. You can go to bed at night and your brain is like, let's pluck the most fucked up thing we can say to this person out of nowhere and go, hey, aren't you pathetic? And you're like, and you believe it. That's how brilliant your brain is. Yeah. And so like, I think it's super interesting what you're talking about. It takes a lot of respect. It takes going, okay, I have to respect this bad side of myself, this evil part of my brain, because it's super smart. But at the same time, it is not you, and it is not talking about you.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how both powerful and fragile our minds are. And the respect you're talking about, we don't respect that idea. We don't respect that concept. We all kind of think, I got it. Like, my brain isn't going to think or do anything that I'm not in controlling, right? We don't want to ever believe that we couldn't be out of control of our brains. I mean, maybe under the influences of some substances or whatever that might be, somebody might acknowledge, okay, maybe I'm a little not in control right now. But if you're just stone cold sober, no one wants to acknowledge that they're not fully in control of themselves. But you have to acknowledge it. You have to respect that. And it doesn't mean you're being led around and, oh my God, I'm going to go do this crazy thing. It's mostly always just this cerebral battle that then ties directly to your emotions that you're fighting. But you've got to respect the fragility of your mind. And again, that can come down to literally just having your hormones imbalanced just a little bit. If your hormones are imbalanced just a little bit, and things that you talk about on your Instagram and on Zaddy Zone, which I'm so grateful you're doing, which is the kind of, I hate to use the term life hacking, but it's kind of is that nowadays. It's like you want to feel better, get some sleep. You want to get some sleep, respect your circadian rhythm. But we don't. We think, no. I'm going to wake up when I wake up. I'm going to do what I want to do in the morning. I'm going to eat how I want to eat. I'm going to not meditate, not pray, not any of that. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to go to bed whenever I want to. And then I'm going to have the sleep that I get. And not recognizing that even that, sleep, wow, what an incredibly important part of your mental health. But we're not taught that. Only now are we even really unpacking that idea, which is mind-boggling, but at least we are now.
Yeah, but at least we're, I think we can learn, even though we can't control our lives, it's impossible to control our lives. COVID taught us all that. If you didn't know it before, you know it now. We are totally out of control of our lives. Maybe we can attempt to control our bodies a little bit. And even then it's very difficult to do, because you see how hard it is to control the brain, the way that the brain can talk to you. But there are little things that you can do, like moving. For instance, moving is your brain exists for your body to move. That is literally why you have a brain. And so how fantastic that is that you can go and do that, getting beautiful sleep, feeding your brain good foods so that it can operate on a proper level, diving into like cold water, getting into a hot sauna. All of those things are great for the brain. And even though you won't have perfect control over your brain the whole time, you can shift those few behaviors and have a brain that you can get along a bit better with, because you're doing good for it.
Yeah. And with that, all of those things, the beauty is that you're doing such a service to your body by working out, moving, eating well, sleeping well, cold plunge, sauna, all of these things, all of these modalities. You're doing so right, so well by your body, but simultaneously and in turn creating such a healthier system, nervous system, cardiovascular system, neurological system. You're doing all of the things. Those are the things that you want to be striving toward. And again, shit. Not that Wim Hof and different people haven't been talking about these things for a little while, but mainstream. 5 years maybe in human history have we really, now like cold plunges are a thing that people are really starting to do, and it's not just some weird fringe thing of like, oh yeah, you ever go lay in ice water? I tell you, it's crazy. There's entire companies that like their whole purpose is to make cold plunges. And that was not a thing before, So it's really cool. It's really cool that we're finally coming around on this stuff.
Yes, I agree. I wanted to ask you a question about your walk with God, because it is laid out in the book. What do you notice? What's your relationship with God like now, as opposed to what it was like when you were at the bottom?
Great question. So, I'll go back even further. So, my relationship with God started at a very, very, very young age. I mean, I probably around the same time I was figuring out that I could entertain people or whatever, you know, that your brain around 4, at least for me, was starting to grasp larger concepts, become more aware. And I think around that same time was when I was really starting to grasp the concept of God. And, you know, going to Sunday school or, you know, whatever it was. I grew up in a Christian household, although a very, very different type of Christian household, which I'll get to. But I think at a very, very young age, I really did genuinely, not just like, I think I believed in God, but like, I know that I did. I know that I had a deep faith, and I can't explain why. I don't know where that came from. But I know that I had it, and it's been with me my whole life. And then I grew up in a home. My mom and dad were both Christians, but my dad was much more of a kind of religious, more liturgic, like church every Sunday, teaches Sunday. By the way, sometimes multiple times a week, not just Sunday, teaches Sunday school, sings in the worship band. Like, you know, he was very much, that was a huge part of his identity. My mom and dad divorced. We grew up with my mom. My mom, on the other hand, was kind of a polar opposite. My mom, as I talk about in the book, she was a very spiritual, you know, like speaking in tongues and, you know, that kind of Christian, but had huge problems with authority and didn't really like going to church. She grew up Catholic for a long time, and then she and my dad had met in a church down in LA that ended up becoming like a crazy cult. And so she had a lot of misgivings about it all, which I don't necessarily blame her for. I have a lot of weird misgivings about all that stuff too, because there are a lot of, you know, people of God, be they pastors or priests or whatever, that are really fucked up people who mislead and betray a lot of folks. And not because they're evil, but because they themselves are broken and they really need some help. But anyway, we growing up with our mom, like never went to church. But you know, God was always talked about in our home. My mom would have, you know, friends over, my mom and dad, and they'd have wine and they'd be praying and speaking in tongues and talking about bigger concepts and stuff. So I was always around that stuff. And then when I graduated high school, I started to just go pursue God on my own because I didn't want to just believe something because my parents believed it. It just didn't seem like a really great way to go live your life, you know? So I started going to church and checking out some different ones and found some really great community and found some, you know, really great growth and learning through a lot of that time. And then ended up in LA and went to various churches in LA, but honestly didn't really resonate with most of them. And I think a lot of that just had to do with the fact that I think it was around in the early 2000s, but I don't know, church just started becoming like this hyper produced, like it's, you know, I would call it the God show. You're not showing up and breaking bread and getting deep. It's like, come on in, everybody. And there's like big screens and lights and, you know, gobos spinning around. I mean, there were multiple churches I went to in LA that had a jib arm camera that was sweeping over the audience and getting everybody's reactions. Like, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? Why are you doing this? Also, this is where all your tithe money goes to this? Like, shouldn't we all just be doing this and then taking a lot of that money on helping people that are less fortunate? Anyway, so I just kind of gave me a weird taste in my mouth. And then there was a men's Bible study that I did in LA for quite a few years. And we had a great community that built around that. And then that kind of moved into a home church that met at my house for 10 years. And that was way more my speed. It was just like legitimately just people gathering and, you know, being community and talking about God and trying to get into, you know, deeper understanding of it all and learning and growing and not feeling like we have all the answers, you know, because we don't. We just fucking don't. Nobody does. I don't care who you are. I don't care what religion you represent. You do not have all the answers. Let's all have a little more humility. And so that was kind of where that was. And my faith continues to evolve. My concept of, you know, of God and God's nature and character and history and all of that are things that I continue to challenge and continue to want to understand on a deeper level. And then came the darkness. And after, 37 years of having basically, not that there weren't moments where I was in some other darkness and had questions or questioned my faith. But 5 years ago, when I moved out here to Austin and had my breakdown, I really believed that God called me to make this move. I felt it so strongly. I was so convicted that my life was building to a greater purpose, which was to build this studio out here, this kind of new United Artists studio, and make a better world and make a better Hollywood that makes a better world. And it's been on my heart since I was brand new, probably even before I worked in the business, but certainly since I started working in the business 20 now plus years ago. And I really felt this was my calling. And so I did it. I moved out. I bought this land. I was like, let's go, God, let's go. And not only has that not happened yet, it certainly didn't happen as fast as I hoped it was going to happen. But I felt very alone. I felt like I had been abandoned, but not just by my friends and family, but by God, because I didn't understand what the hell I was doing out here if doors were not going to open. And I know what it's like to have doors just miraculously, spiritually open in my life. Like, I know that there are things that you don't even have to put that much work into, or any at all. It's not a matter of the work. It's not your work that needs to be done. It's God asking you, go move. And when you move, that faith is the activator, because you need to go do that first. And so it not kind of manifesting, it not just becoming the thing that I thought I was so convinced I was supposed to do. And then on top of that, not only was it not manifesting, but I was completely falling apart and getting consumed by the darkness and all of it. And I was screaming, yelling out for God, top of my lungs, like so alone, so lost, having no idea what to do, not wanting to live. And that was probably the only moment I can really think of throughout my life, that those few months where I legitimately came, after all those years, I legitimately came to a point where I couldn't believe anymore, because if this is what believing brought me and where it brought me, then maybe that was just some bullshit that I was, manufacturing between my own ears, and didn't really have the validity that I always believed that it did. Now, having gone through this life-saving therapy that I went through, and that one of the most critical people in that journey was this Christian woman, pastor's wife, who happened to work at this place that I was getting treatment at, who, at the risk of losing her own job, prayed me and loved me back to life. Because it was a spiritual or Christian place that I went to go get this work. That got me back. She lit the pilot light of self-love in me. God used her very, very clearly to help me understand how to at least start to love myself again and believe that I was worthy of loving myself. And now, coming out of that, my faith is strong, very strong, back to being strong again, but has definitely evolved. It's less, I think I've come to terms with the idea that you might feel very convicted about certain things in your life. You might pick up and move across the country and try to go accomplish things. And you might even feel like God was saying, yeah, go do that. But that doesn't necessarily mean God's going to do that. It means he's going to use whatever it takes to get you to move, to go get to another place, which I needed to get to. I needed to fall apart. And I didn't know that I needed to fall apart. And I would not have fallen apart the way that I fell apart if I never left LA. If I would have stayed in the comfort of my home I lived in for 13 years in Studio City, that was dialed in and fine, and I would just keep living in LA, and then that perfect weather, and I'd see my friends, and I'd have my routine, and I'd get work here and there, and whatever it was, I never would have gotten to the point of completely falling on my knees. And that's what we need to do. And we need to do it. If you're not going to do it on a regular basis, like every day on some level, fall to your knees in gratitude and trust, humility, gratitude, and trust. Those three things I think are the most important active words that we as human beings need to apply when it comes to moving forward in our relationship with God, the universe, that power, that energy, that spirit. We have to come at it with humility. We have to come at it with gratitude, and we have to come at it with trust. And if we do that on a daily basis, recognizing that just because you get some crazy big ideas doesn't necessarily mean God's like, yeah, I'm going to make it all happen. It's going to be easy as pie and blah, blah, blah. No, you need to learn and grow through all of it. And I really do believe in hindsight that was all part of it. And so, again, hindsight's 2020, and it's really easy to feel like, oh, that's why, or it all worked out the way it was supposed to work out. But I really do believe, having gone through what I've gone through, that was all part of what this journey was supposed to be for me. Yeah,
look, if nothing else, well, no, not if nothing else, the way that your book is, and this experience that has allowed you to write this book and then illuminate your struggle, which so many people have, if nothing else, that is what this is for. It is to strengthen you in your walk with God, and then you get to spread that to people. And it spread to me, and it hit me in a very beautiful way. And it also teaches me that I am not immune to such things, that it's entirely possible that I could go through something like that. And here's a story for you, Zach, because we're getting yelled at to wrap up. So here's a story for you. We have friends in common, and their names are Johnny and Virginia. And they got married about 10 years ago when I'd first moved to LA. And I had a reception at a place called Hemingway's. I wasn't invited to the wedding, but I worked at Hemingway's. I was a busboy. And you were at the wedding. I think you were blonde at the time. And you came in, and there was a team of fellas around you. They were all hanging on your every word, of which you explained. You were telling them about your investment portfolio. And I was there, a minimum wage busboy, listening into you. And I knew who you were. And I was like, I hate this guy. I was like, I'm just so resentful. I was so resentful and bitter about you. I was like, look at this working actor. He's exactly where I want to be. And here am I working as a busboy. And then now, today, fast forward, and I've realized that you are my inspiration. I think I'd really like to be a bit more like you.
That's very kind. No, seriously. Well, I can't recall what conversation was going on, because I really don't have an investment portfolio. So I don't know that I was talking about that. I might've been talking about something else. But first of all, I can totally relate to those feelings. I mean, even when I was a working actor, like I was saying, I was still looking at these other people that I was so envious of. I was so like, why can't I get to where that is? I mean, for example, like Chris Evans and we did a pilot together years ago. It was like one of our first jobs. And to watch him just go, whoop, gone. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what the actual fuck? There was all these just moments of my career where I was like, fuck that. Like, I don't know how to get there, but it's fuck that he's there and I'm not there, whatever it is. But but I'm glad that through your journey, genuinely, I mean, you're such a fucking talented and funny guy. What the irony is that you and I have never actually met in person, and yet we interact on Instagram like all the time. And we have so many friends in common. But I love what you put out there, man. I'm so grateful that you continued on that path, that you've continued to build a very healthy career, and you are continuing to use your talents and your heart and your mind to help a lot of people, and you are. And it really does, like, it genuinely touches me to have you say that, because, you know, we got very little time at the end of the day. We don't have that much time on the planet, and not that you're going to please everybody. Obviously, we're not. There's going to be people that are always going to think, "Fuck this guy." But I'm grateful that in your memories, in your journey, I went from being somebody that had that connotation to somebody who is hopefully bringing, you know, some more love and light into your life. That means a lot.
You definitely do. I want to encourage everybody listening to this, go and buy Radical Love. We will link to it in the show notes. Go and buy it at your local bookstore. It's a sensational read, and it shines a really important light on mental health. And Zach does a stellar job of writing it. Also, Shazam! Fury of the Gods is coming out. When does that come out?
Yeah, December 21st, man. It's really cool. We shot it all. We were supposed to come out next June, and then the higher ups at Warner Brothers in DC were so pleased with what we made that they're like, you know what? Pull that baby up. We're going to make you a Christmas movie.
Yes.
So I'm super pumped about
what sort of shape
I think the movie, I mean, I'm pretty proud of it.
I want to hear about like how you got in shape for it a little bit. We don't have much time, but you must have like worked out like a monster, did you?
Yeah, I mean, the first one was the hardest because I had never put on that kind of weight before in my life. I was always, 200 pounds average, like not heavy. Like that was just like my regular kind of standing average weight. And I'm 6'4", so 200 pounds is not that much weight if you're 6'4". And then for the first one, I probably had about 2 months of runway, and then I was into more training in Toronto while we were shooting. But I put on like 25 pounds in 2 months, and that was really intense and really hard. And also, it wasn't like 25 pounds of all muscle. I'm eating 5,000 calories a day.
It has to be both
5-6 days a week, and doing my best. Yeah. And then for the second one, it was back to eating 4,500 or so calories and working out 4 to 5 times a week or as much as I could just to maintain. I'm still holding on to a little bit of that from the first one. I mean, the irony is that they still put contour suits all over your ass anyway. It's like you can't. In the first one, my shoulders looked like I was like a football player in the 1930s. I'm like, guys, why are you making my shoulders so massive? Because I worked my ass off to actually get big for that, but then you don't even really see the fruit of your labor, which is kind of a bummer. But anyway, it is what it is, and I'm just grateful that I'm really, aside from the fact that it's just such a fun role to play and totally changed my life and the trajectory of my career, and I'm so grateful for all of it. It is really cool to have a reason outside of just, I want to be healthy, like have that extra bit of fire of like, oh no, you want to go get ripped? Because you should go get ripped because you're going to go be a superhero. And I knew that the contour suits were, a thing and everybody uses them and blah, blah, blah. But I knew also I'm going to have to go promote this fucking movie. And if I go promote the movie and I'm Twig, people are going to be like, that's ridiculous. But if I go promote the movie and I've actually still got some size on me, people will, allow me a little bit more grace. So it was great. It was great.
And what about Flow Supplements? You own a supplement company.
I do, yeah. So, when I was making the first Shazam and I was working out and taking all these supplements all the time and realizing that just so many of them are garbage. Their ingredients are not that great, or the ingredients are fine, but you're not getting most of those ingredients. You're getting filler. You're getting what's the word? There's a particular term for it. It's on the back of all the bottles. Something.
It's not bioavailable.
It's a bunch of filler.
It's just not going to be bioavailable to you. You can eat as much of it as you want, and if it's not bioavailable, then you're not absorbing.
Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, I was complaining about this to one of my friends here in Texas and saying, man, I just wish I could make my own supplements so I don't have to take this garbage. And he goes, well, I actually know a guy who's in the supplement game. And if you want to have that conversation, we can, let's do that. And so I had that conversation. I said, listen, I'd like to make supplements, not just for me, but I'm going to make them for me. Obviously, we're going to make them for as many people as we can. And I just want to make sure that they are the most top quality ingredients at the absolute best price, like everything should be, really. And no filler. Proprietary blend. Oh. That's what it's called. If you look on the back of almost every supplement bottle, you'll see ingredient list and it'll say proprietary blend.
Yeah.
And that's just sawdust. I mean, it's like
cornmeal
nonsense. Also, yeah, exactly. Also, you get these tubs and they're a quarter full of the shit that I'm like, no, I'd like to do better than that. Let's give them as much as we can, whatever the nozzle allows. So that was our whole goal. Launched it after the first Shazam. We do pretty good. I mean, we're a break-even company at the moment, but we're now starting to get carried in GCs, which is really cool. So I'm hoping that on the brick and mortar side starts to pump up the brand a bit more. Like any startup, it takes a while and it takes blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of money. And so, but even if we're just break even and we can just stay afloat, if I can keep providing our greens, our collagen, our protein, our pre-workout, they're all very, very, very high level, top-notch product. And a lot of people have already been very helpful.
Well, maybe you can send me some because I'm in preparation for a role. It's the porn version of Shazam. It's called Jizzam, Fury of the Queefs. Fury of the Queefs.
Jizzam what? Fury of the Queefs?
So please send me some. I want to get buffed for that.
Oh, wow. Wow. I'll get on that. I need you to be you're going to be representing me in porn version of me. I need you.
I've absolutely loved having you on here, mate. You're an absolute joy and appreciate you. As I've mentioned before, go get Radical Love. Get some flow supplements while you're at it. Zach Levi, thanks so much for joining us.
Luke Cook, thank you so much for doing the Zaddy Zone, and thanks for having me. Appreciate you.